AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she messed up my parents' house. A few years ago, my life seemed relatively straightforward. I am 28, live in a modest apartment in the city, and work a standard office job that I actually enjoy. My parents, however, live in a large house in the suburbs, which they've been maintaining for decades. My younger sister, Claire, is 24 and has always been a bit of a free spirit. She's creative, charming, and brilliant in bursts, but also tends to be reckless and impulsive, a combination that has caused more than a few family headaches over the years. About 6 months ago, Claire lost her job at a small startup due to budget cuts. She called my parents crying, panicked about rent and bills, and begged if she could come temporarily stay at their house until she got back on her feet. My parents, being soft-hearted, agreed. Initially, I wasn't too concerned because I live a couple of hours away and don't usually stay at their place. I thought it would just be a short-term arrangement. Within 2 weeks, it became apparent that Claire's definition of temporary and helping herself get back on her feet was very different from reality. She would stay up until 3 or 4 a.m. binge-watching shows, ordering takeout constantly, leaving dishes in the sink for days, and generally leaving messes that my parents didn't notice until they tried to go to bed. She also seemed to treat my parents' money as if it were her own, buying new clothes, random electronics, and even a small dog without discussing it with anyone. My parents, who are both in their late 50s, are not confrontational and have always struggled to say no to her. Things escalated when Claire decided to redecorate part of the house without consulting anyone. She painted a guest room a bright neon green and replaced some of my mom's antique furniture with IKEA items she claimed were more modern and fun. My parents were too shocked to react at the time, and Claire acted as if she had done everyone a favor. When they tried to explain they weren't happy, she said it was their problem for being too old-fashioned, and that she was just trying to make the house livable for someone her age. I didn't step in at first because, like I said, I live a distance away. But then my parents started calling me multiple times a week, panicked about things Claire had broken or replaced, and asking for advice on how to handle her. Every attempt to reason with her failed. If they tried to say anything negative, she would start crying, accusing them of being unsupportive and emotionally abusive. My parents were too worn down by this to push back and just wanted me to intervene. When I visited one weekend, I couldn't believe the state of the house. There were coffee stains on every carpet, walls scuffed from random furniture moves, dog hair everywhere, and every surface covered with half-finished craft projects and clutter. Claire was sitting on the couch scrolling her phone, complaining about how my parents didn't understand modern aesthetics. I tried to talk to her privately, urging her to respect the house and my parents' rules, but she dismissed me, saying I didn't get it and that she was just expressing herself. The breaking point came a few weeks later. Claire threw a party at my parents' house while they were away for a weekend trip. She invited friends from college and a few coworkers, and there were at least 20 people there. When my parents returned, they found beer bottles and food everywhere, a broken lamp, scratches on the hardwood floors, and a large stain on the new couch she had ordered herself. Claire acted like it was no big deal and expected my parents to be grateful she had made friends with the neighbor's kids. They were devastated, and I was furious. I sat down with Claire and told her that she needed to leave. I offered to help her find temporary housing or even co-sign for a small apartment, but she refused. She claimed that she had nowhere else to go, and that kicking her out would be cruel. I reminded her of everything she had done to my parents' house, the damage, the mess, and the stress she had caused. I tried to be patient, but she started yelling, saying I was choosing my parents over my family and hiding behind morality. My parents were supportive of my decision privately, but were too timid to enforce it themselves. So I told Claire that if she didn't leave within a week, I would contact a property manager to change locks and have her belongings removed. She flipped, threatening to call the police and saying I was abusing my power as the older sibling. My parents begged me not to do anything drastic, fearing family drama, but I realized that if I didn't act, my parents' house and their mental health would continue to suffer. In the end, I followed through. I gave Claire 7 days, helped her pack, and supervised her move to a small apartment downtown. My parents were relieved, but also sad because they didn't want the family to break apart. Claire, however, has been texting me nonstop, calling me heartless and manipulative, and claiming I destroyed her life by not letting her stay at my parents' house. She has posted on social media that I am the sibling who abandoned her, and that I sided with the oppressive older generation. Since then, family gatherings have been tense. My parents are grateful and feel like they can breathe again, but Claire has refused to visit unless I'm not around and has taken to making passive-aggressive comments online that my parents show me. Some distant relatives have even started questioning whether I overreacted. I personally feel like I did the right thing. I tried to reason with her, offered alternatives, and gave her a fair timeline. My parents' house was being damaged, and their peace of mind was being disregarded. I love my sister, but at some point, enabling destructive behavior stops being loving. I worry that she thinks I betrayed her, but I also worry about what would have happened if I had done nothing. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister continue living at my parents' house after all the chaos she caused, even though she claims she had no other options. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she insulted me in front of our family? I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 25F. We grew up relatively close, but as we got older, our differences became more pronounced. I'm more career-focused, organized, and cautious with finances, while Emily is spontaneous, creative, and sometimes reckless with money. Despite our differences, I've always tried to be supportive, especially when she went through tough times. However, the latest family drama surrounding her upcoming wedding has completely strained our relationship, and now I'm being accused of being selfish. Emily got engaged about 6 months ago. From the beginning, she was very clear about wanting a fairy tale wedding. I was happy for her and offered my help with planning, thinking it would be a fun way to spend time together and show my support. Early on, I helped her research venues, caterers, and florists, and even went with her to taste tests. I didn't mind spending my free time helping her because I wanted to be involved. However, things started going downhill when she began openly criticizing my input. For instance, I suggested a few venues that were within her budget and fit the aesthetic she described, but she dismissed them without giving a reason, saying they didn't feel magical enough. Then she began commenting on my fashion choices for her bridal shower and bachelorette party, making subtle but hurtful remarks about my style and implying that I wasn't fun enough to be involved in the celebration. I tried to brush it off and kept helping because I thought it was just stress talking. The tipping point came 2 months ago during a family dinner. We were discussing wedding plans with my parents and some of our extended family. Emily suddenly turned to me and said in front of everyone, "Honestly, I don't even know why I bother including you. You never understand what I want. You're so rigid and boring. You make everything about yourself instead of helping me." I was shocked and hurt. I tried to respond calmly, explaining that I was only trying to help and stay within the budget she had set, but she cut me off and walked away. My parents didn't say much, they just looked uncomfortable, but Emily's fiancé laughed and made a joke about how serious I always am. I left the dinner feeling humiliated and completely unappreciated. After that, I tried to have a private conversation with her to clear the air. I told her that I wanted to support her, but I needed to feel respected and valued in the process. I explained that I couldn't continue helping if I was going to be insulted in front of everyone. Emily got defensive and said I was overreacting and that she was just stressed about the wedding. She said I was making everything about myself, which I found ironic considering she had just accused me of doing exactly that in front of the family. The conversation ended with her storming off, saying she'd handle everything herself and that I didn't need to be involved. Since then, I've stopped helping her completely. I haven't offered any assistance with planning, attending dress fittings, or organizing events leading up to the wedding. I've also declined several requests from my parents and relatives to help smooth things over because I don't feel comfortable being treated like a doormat. Emily has not spoken to me directly since that dinner, but she has posted passive-aggressive comments on social media and sent group texts to family members implying that I am being unreasonable and refusing to support my own sister. My parents are now caught in the middle. They say that I should apologize and at least help with some tasks, especially since it's her wedding, and they've expressed concern that this tension is affecting family harmony. They've even suggested that I bite the bullet and attend all the pre-wedding events despite feeling hurt. I explained to them that attending the wedding or helping with planning under the current circumstances would make me uncomfortable and wouldn't be genuine support. They argue that family comes first, but I feel like they're dismissing the fact that Emily publicly insulted me and that I have a right to set boundaries. Some of my extended family members have reached out, saying that I'm being too sensitive and that I should just get over it for the sake of Emily's happiness. A few friends I confided in think I might be overreacting and should at least offer help in small ways to avoid a bigger family conflict. On the other hand, another group of friends told me I was right to step back and that no one deserves to be humiliated or treated disrespectfully, even if it's a wedding. The situation is causing a lot of tension. Emily's fiancé doesn't seem to understand why I'm upset, and my parents are worried about the optics of family drama during the wedding. I feel like if I give in and participate, it won't be because I want to support her, but because I'm trying to avoid conflict, which doesn't feel authentic. I also worry that attending events or helping with planning under these circumstances would only give her the impression that it's okay to treat me poorly. I've considered trying family therapy or mediation, but Emily has not responded to any of my attempts to communicate, so I don't see how that would work at this point. I'm stuck in this situation, feeling torn between wanting to support my sister and protecting my own emotional well-being. I keep second-guessing myself because I don't want to be labeled as the bad sister or cause unnecessary drama, but I also feel like it's unfair to ask me to participate after being publicly insulted. So, AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she insulted me in front of our family? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her behavior toward my partner? I, 29F, have a sister, Emma, 32F, who has always been somewhat controlling and dramatic, though I tried to overlook it in the past because she is family. Recently, our relationship has become extremely strained, mainly because of how she treats my partner, Alex, 30M. I never thought it would get to the point where I would refuse to attend her wedding, but here we are, and I honestly don't know if I'm the asshole in this situation. A little backstory. Alex and I have been together for 4 years. He is kind, funny, and incredibly patient, which has been important given the way Emma interacts with people. Emma is a perfectionist to the extreme and has a very specific vision for how everything should be, especially regarding her wedding. From the start, she was very vocal about how she doesn't like certain types of people, which included a few of Alex's friends and some of my extended family. I tried to explain that we can't exclude people just because she doesn't feel like interacting with them, but she insisted that her wedding should be curated to perfection and that she alone would decide who is welcome. Over time, her hostility toward Alex became obvious. She would make comments in front of me about how he isn't sophisticated enough for her family or how she doesn't understand why I would settle for someone like him. She would also make subtle digs at his career, income, and hobbies, usually under the guise of joking. At first, I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she was just nervous about the wedding. But then it escalated. A month before the wedding, Emma sent me a long email detailing the guest seating arrangement and how she had optimized it so that Alex wouldn't be sitting next to anyone she didn't approve of. She said she was doing me a favor because he clearly wouldn't know how to handle being around sophisticated people. I was furious. I replied politely, explaining that I wasn't comfortable with her belittling my partner or treating him differently than everyone else. She responded with a text saying that I was too sensitive and that if I couldn't handle her rules, I didn't have to come. I tried to talk to her multiple times in person, but she either brushed me off or made it about how stressful wedding planning was for her. I even offered compromises, like attending without Alex. But that was immediately shot down with "you're just punishing me and showing you don't care about my big day." At this point, It was clear she didn't care about our feelings at all. It was entirely about control. A week before the wedding, she sent another group message to all family members who were attending, casually calling Alex's social circle a bit rough around the edges and not really in line with the event's tone. That was the last straw. I realized that if I attended, I would be enabling her behavior and essentially telling her it was okay to talk about the people I love that way. I told Alex about my decision, and he was supportive but clearly upset. He didn't want me to be stressed or treated poorly, and he agreed that Emma's behavior had been unacceptable. I then called Emma to explain that I would not be attending unless she apologized and agreed to treat Alex with respect. She laughed and said that if I was going to be dramatic about it, then she didn't want me there anyway. The day of the wedding arrived, and several family members tried to guilt-trip me over text, saying things like it's your sister's big day and you're overreacting. Some distant relatives even implied that I was selfish for putting Alex before family. I did not respond because I wanted to avoid further conflict. Since then, Emma has posted photos of the wedding on social media and tagged me with captions like, "Wishing you were here to enjoy this perfect day." I haven't replied. Alex and I have been talking about how this might permanently affect my relationship with my sister, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to reconcile until she shows some genuine remorse. Some people in my friend group think I overreacted and that family events should be attended no matter what. Others understand that standing up for your partner is important and that it's okay to set boundaries. My parents are in the middle. They want me to attend, but also understand that Emma's behavior has been difficult to deal with. So, AITA for refusing to go to my sister's wedding because of how she treated my partner and refused to acknowledge or correct her behavior. I feel like I did what I had to do to protect myself and Alex, but the backlash has made me question whether I went too far. Has anyone else been in a situation where a sibling was toxic toward your partner and pressured you to attend a major event anyway? How did you navigate it without completely burning bridges? I just want to know if my reaction is reasonable or if I'm being overly dramatic. AITA for refusing to let my sister's partner move in after she left him at my place for a week. I, 28F, have always been close with my sister, Emily, 31F. We live in the same city, and even though our personalities are very different, she's outgoing and spontaneous while I'm more introverted and structured. We've always made it work. Emily has been dating Mark, 33M, for about 2 years, and I've met him on several occasions. He's generally polite, but can be a little overbearing, especially when it comes to his expectations of other people. A few weeks ago, Emily called me in a panic. She and Mark had a huge fight, and she said she needed to get away for a few days. Without thinking too much, I agreed to let her stay at my apartment. I know that conflicts in relationships happen, and I figured a few days wouldn't hurt. She arrived the same night, visibly upset, carrying a couple of suitcases. I tried to be supportive, helped her settle in, and kept my apartment stocked with snacks and essentials. I expected her to stay for maybe 3 or 4 days and then go back home after things calmed down. The first few days went fine. Emily was grateful. We watched movies, cooked together, and even had some heart-to-heart conversations about her relationship. However, after day 3, I noticed a change. She started talking constantly about how she was not sure what to do and mentioned Mark repeatedly, often in a way that made me feel like she was leaning on me to justify leaving him. I tried to remain neutral, reminding her gently that she had to make her own decisions. Then things got awkward. On day 5, Emily told me that Mark had come to her apartment and demanded to speak with her, and she didn't know how to handle it. I offered to help her set boundaries or call a mediator, but she said she just needed space. Later that evening, she said something that made me extremely uncomfortable. She asked if Mark could stay at my place just for a few nights because she wasn't ready to face him yet. I was taken aback. I've never had a host or boyfriend, and I don't even know him that well. I told her that it wasn't a good idea. My apartment is small, I value my privacy, and I didn't feel comfortable having him live with me, even temporarily. She seemed frustrated, but left it at that. The next morning, Emily came over again and told me that she had told Mark she couldn't host him, and he was upset. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. She implied that I should just let him crash here for a few nights, He's not a bad guy. I firmly said no. I explained that it's not my responsibility to provide a place for her partner, and I didn't feel comfortable doing so. I even suggested she could stay at a hotel or call some mutual friends for temporary help. Emily got angry and accused me of being unsupportive and selfish, saying I was choosing privacy over family. Things escalated quickly after that. Emily left my apartment in a huff, and the next day, Mark called me directly. He sounded polite at first, thanking me for letting Emily stay with me. But then he started pushing, asking if there was any way he could stay just for a couple of nights while Emily sorted things out. I told him again, very clearly, that my apartment was off limits and that it wasn't my responsibility to house him. I also reminded him that Emily had other options. He then accused me of turning against her and tried to guilt-trip me, saying that families should support each other no matter what. I held my ground, but I could feel my hands shaking after the call. Over the next few days, Emily sent me multiple texts, some pleading, some angry. She accused me of being heartless and suggested that if I cared about her at all, I would help. I tried to reason with her, explaining that I'm not unsupportive. I've been providing her with emotional support, food, and a safe place to stay. But having Mark live in my apartment crossed a boundary I am not comfortable with. She eventually stopped texting, but our relationship has been tense ever since. She's visiting less, is curt when we speak, and I sense that Mark is actively trying to turn her against me. Our mutual friends are split. Some say I was right to set boundaries, that hosting a partner, especially one I barely know, is unreasonable. Others say I should have just helped out my sister in a tough moment, and that my refusal is petty. I feel stuck. On one hand, I value my privacy and feel like I shouldn't be forced to host someone I don't know because of their relationship issues. On the other hand, I hate feeling like I've hurt my sister and damaged our relationship. I consider giving in, but I honestly don't think I could live with someone like Mark in my space, even for a short period. I keep replaying the conversations in my head, wondering if I could have handled it differently, said something differently, or found some compromise. But every time I think about it, I realize the core of the issue is my boundaries. I feel like I should be able to say no without being labeled as selfish, but Emily seems to think family obligations should override personal comfort. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's partner stay at my apartment after she asked me to help. AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting in front of my entire extended family. Last weekend, my family gathered for my grandmother's 80th birthday party. My sister, Jenna, her husband, and their 2 kids came as well. I have a pretty close relationship with my sister, although we've always had our differences. Jenna has 2 children, a 7-year-old named Emma and a 4-year-old named Lucas. I have a 10-year-old son, Max. While I'm aware every parent has their own style, I've noticed over the years that Jenna can be extremely strict with Emma and Lucas, often punishing them in ways I consider harsh. I try not to interfere because I know parenting is personal, but this weekend, things escalated. The party was at my grandmother's house, which has a big backyard. There were maybe 20 relatives, ranging from my cousins and aunts/uncles to a few family friends. The kids were playing together, running around, and enjoying themselves. At one point, Lucas tripped and fell while running and started crying. Jenna immediately scolded him, telling him he shouldn't have been running so fast and that he needs to control himself, or she wouldn't let him play outside anymore. Emma, on the other hand, had been playing near the garden, and my sister accused her of picking flowers without asking. She was stern with both kids, and Lucas was clearly upset and trembling a little. I understand that discipline is necessary, but something about the way she was talking to Lucas, practically yelling and making him feel guilty in front of everyone, made my blood boil. I could see Max starting to get uncomfortable as well, and I felt I couldn't just stay silent. I took a deep breath and walked over to my sister, asking her quietly, "Jenna, could you maybe lower your voice?" He just fell, he's scared. She immediately snapped at me, saying, "Mind your own business. I'm a mother here." I stepped back, trying not to escalate, but I felt like the situation was not just about Lucas's fault. She's often very harsh with the kids, and I've seen her use public humiliation as a form of discipline, which I think is unnecessary. A few minutes later, Lucas, still teary, tried to apologize to Emma for bumping into her while running. Jenna overheard and started lecturing him in a raised voice again, calling him careless. At that point, I couldn't hold back anymore. I stood up in the middle of the backyard, where a few relatives had gathered, and I said, "Jenna, this isn't okay. You can discipline them, but shouting and humiliating them in front of everyone isn't teaching them anything. You're scaring Lucas." My sister looked shocked and angry, and some relatives turned to look. She snapped, "Excuse me? Who asked you to interfere? You've never been a perfect parent yourself. Don't tell me how to raise my kids." The conversation quickly became heated. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to dictate her parenting, but that seeing her berate Lucas and Emma publicly made me uncomfortable. I didn't think it was healthy for the kids. She started yelling at me in return, and soon our voices were loud enough that everyone in the backyard was staring. Some family members tried to intervene, telling us to calm down, but I couldn't just stay silent while she kept humiliating a 4-year-old. I reminded her that discipline can be firm without being demeaning, and that public shaming can have long-term effects on children's confidence. At this point, Lucas ran to my mother for comfort, and I could see he was really upset. Emma stayed nearby, quietly holding a flower she had picked earlier, looking guilty but also tense. I told my sister, still in front of everyone, that if she continued to yell at her kids like this, she might end up pushing them away or damaging their trust in her. She shouted back that I was overstepping my bounds and that she was perfectly capable of handling her own children. Some of our cousins took sides. Some agreed with me that the kids shouldn't be publicly scolded, while others felt I was overreacting and embarrassing my sister. My grandmother eventually stepped in, asking both of us to calm down and stop arguing in front of the children. I apologized for raising my voice, but I didn't retract what I had said about the children's treatment. Jenna stormed off with her kids after that, saying she didn't want to be humiliated in front of everyone. The party ended awkwardly after that, and my mother later told me that Jenna was very upset and felt attacked. Since then, Jenna has barely spoken to me. Some of my relatives are supporting me, saying that I was standing up for the children, while others think I shouldn't have confronted her publicly and that it has permanently damaged our relationship. I feel torn because I do care about my sister and her kids, and I wanted to address what I saw as harmful behavior, but I also realized that doing it in front of everyone might have embarrassed her and made things worse. I honestly don't know if I crossed a line or if I was justified in speaking up for Lucas and Emma. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister, but I also feel like I couldn't stay silent when I saw a 4-year-old being publicly berated and frightened. So, AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting in front of my entire extended family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to make an impossible choice between her and my fiancé. This whole situation has been eating at me for months, and I'm honestly torn about whether I handled it the right way. So, I figure I would come here for some perspective. I, 29F, have been with my fiancé, Mark, 31M, for 4 years. We met in college, got engaged last year, and have been planning our own wedding for next summer. I have a younger sister, Emily, 26F, who has always been a bit dramatic, but I usually just shrug it off. Emily got engaged last year too, and her wedding is scheduled for late February. It's a small destination wedding in a coastal town a few hours away from where we live. When she first told me she was planning this wedding, I was genuinely excited for her, but also slightly nervous because it coincides with the weekend we had initially thought about booking for our engagement photos. I didn't say anything at first because we were still early in the planning process and could adjust our schedule. Fast forward a couple of months, Emily reaches out to me and says she wants me to be her maid of honor. At first, I was honored because I do love my sister, and I know she wanted her closest friends and family by her side. But then she casually mentions that she expects me to skip my own fiancé's bachelor party, which is happening the weekend before her wedding, to help her with some pre-wedding errands. She frames it as, no big deal, it's just a few hours. I try to explain that Mark's bachelor party is important to him and that I don't feel comfortable skipping it, especially since it's a milestone event for him. She rolls her eyes and says, "Well, I guess if you're really going to choose him over me, I'll have to find someone else." I feel like this should have been a minor disagreement, but it was just the beginning. Things escalated when she sent me her wedding invitation package a few weeks later. Inside, she included a little note that basically outlined rules for me as her maid of honor. Some of the things were standard, like helping with dress fittings, but other things were extreme. She expected me to fly out a day earlier than everyone else to help decorate the venue, assist with catering setup, and basically be her full-time assistant for 3 days straight. When I brought up that I had my own work obligations and would have to take unpaid leave, she got visibly upset and said, "You really don't care about me at all, do you?" The breaking point came last month when she told me that she had a huge issue with Mark attending the wedding. Apparently, one of her bridesmaids had a bad breakup story with him. This part was vague, but the implication was that she didn't want him there, and she asked me point blank to choose between attending her wedding with Mark or coming alone. I couldn't believe it. I told her I wasn't comfortable being asked to leave my fiancé out of an important family event. I explained that my relationship with him is serious, and excluding him from a wedding would be disrespectful to both of us. She didn't take that well. She cried, accused me of making her wedding about myself, and said she couldn't believe I was putting Mark over my own sister. After that conversation, I decided not to attend the wedding at all. I tried to explain that I love her and want her to have a beautiful day, but I cannot accept being forced into a situation where I have to betray my partner or myself. I sent a text message politely declining and wishing her well, offering to send a gift and video messages from us celebrating her day. She didn't respond to me directly, but instead went on a social media rant about how some people just don't care about family and tagged our other family members. Since then, our family has been split. My parents are upset with me, saying I should have made a compromise, that Emily is only getting married once, and that I'm being selfish. My cousins and friends have been supportive of my decision, saying Emily is being unreasonable. Mark has been understanding, but I can tell he's frustrated that my family is putting me under pressure. My sister hasn't spoken to me directly since my message, and I'm worried that this might permanently damage our relationship. I keep going back and forth in my head. On one hand, I feel guilty for not being there on her special day. On the other hand, I feel like she crossed a line by asking me to exclude my fiancé and take on unrealistic responsibilities for her wedding. I'm wondering if I'm overreacting or if my boundaries were reasonable. So Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she asked me to make an impossible choice between her and my fiancé. AITA for ruining my best friend's wedding over a prank that got out of control. I never imagined I would be writing something like this, but here I am, sitting in my apartment, replaying every single moment of the last few weeks in my head, trying to figure out if I really am the asshole here. This story is long and messy, but I'll try to explain everything as clearly as I can. It all started with my best friend, Jenna. We've been inseparable since college, sharing apartments, boyfriends, terrible jobs, and basically all of our life milestones. When she got engaged to Matt, I was beyond thrilled. I helped her plan the entire wedding, attended every vendor meeting, and even coordinated the bachelorette party. I've always been a little mischievous, but mostly in harmless, fun ways. Jenna knows this and has laughed at most of my antics over the years. This is important context because what happened next came from a place of joking around, but it spiraled into a complete disaster. About a month before the wedding, during one of our late-night planning sessions, I noticed that Jenna was obsessively worried about her perfect image for the day. Her dress, her makeup, the lighting, everything. She kept saying how she didn't want anything embarrassing happening in front of the guests. And that's when my brain, apparently, decided to make a very, very bad decision. I thought it would be hilarious to play a prank on her. I know, it sounds stupid, but I honestly thought it would be a harmless laugh. My idea was simple. Swap the labels on her perfume bottles. Jenna has about 6 different scents that she rotates, depending on the day, and she is very particular about which one she wears for special occasions. I thought that if she accidentally put on the night out scent instead of her wedding perfume, she'd notice it and laugh. That was it. No one would get hurt, and she would eventually see the humor in it. I executed the plan the night before the wedding. I carefully switched the bottles in her bathroom, laughing to myself as I imagined her reaction the next day. The next morning, she got ready as usual. I stayed nearby, trying to act casual, but dying inside to see what happened. Here's where everything started to go wrong. Apparently, I had not considered that some of the scents she uses are very strong and not subtle at all. One of the perfumes I swapped was actually a very potent cologne intended for her fiancé's gift set. When Jenna applied it, it produced a very strong, pungent smell that instantly filled the room. At first, she laughed and assumed it was just her imagination, but within minutes, the smell was overwhelming. She started coughing and gagging, and I realized immediately that this was way beyond a harmless prank. I tried to confess and apologize, but she was panicking, insisting that she couldn't walk down the aisle smelling like this in front of everyone. I suggested opening the windows and trying to dilute the scent, but it didn't work fast enough. By the time the wedding limo arrived, the smell was still noticeable. Jenna was in tears, and I was scrambling to figure out how to fix it. Her makeup artist tried to mask it with extra sprays of body mist, but it was futile. I felt horrible and kept apologizing, but she was too upset to even speak to me. I wanted to disappear. When we arrived at the venue, Matt immediately noticed something was wrong. He tried to reassure Jenna, but she was shaking and angry. She ended up demanding a temporary delay in the ceremony to try to fix the issue, but the venue staff weren't prepared for that. Guests were already seated, and the delay caused confusion and frustration. Some relatives started whispering, and I overheard them complaining about the delay. I felt my stomach drop. Eventually, the wedding planners managed to get the smell under control, mostly by ventilating the space and using scented candles, but the moment had been ruined. Jenna was still visibly upset, and though she tried to smile during the ceremony, it was forced. I tried to apologize again, but she refused to speak to me for the rest of the day. During the reception, she avoided me entirely, and Matt had a quiet but stern conversation with me about boundaries and pranks at major life events. I didn't argue. I was devastated. After the wedding, Jenna's family blamed me indirectly, saying that something had gone wrong behind the scenes without explicitly naming me. Friends who knew me well understood it was my prank, and most of them were sympathetic, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had crossed a line that should never have been crossed. Jenna eventually spoke to me after a week, saying she needed space and was hurt, not just because of the smell, but because I had disregarded how important that day was to her. She said she felt humiliated and betrayed. She wasn't mad about the prank itself, but about the timing and the fact that I didn't think about the consequences. I've tried to apologize multiple times, sent flowers, and even wrote a heartfelt letter, but Jenna is still distant. Our friendship is strained, and I can't tell if she will ever forgive me fully. I know I made a huge mistake, but I honestly didn't intend to cause lasting damage. It was supposed to be funny, a silly joke between best friends, not a nightmare on our wedding day. I feel awful and responsible, and I keep replaying the moment in my head, wondering if I'm an irredeemable jerk for doing this. So, Reddit AITA for thinking a harmless prank would be funny at my best friend's wedding and ruining her special day instead. I truly didn't intend to hurt anyone, but the fallout has been worse than I ever imagined, and I feel like I've destroyed a significant milestone in her life. I'm not asking for sympathy, just honesty. I need to know if this was just a bad mistake, or if I'm actually the asshole here. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the planning and insulted my home. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emma, 29F. Growing up, we were very close, but as adults, our differences became more pronounced. I live in a small but cozy apartment in the city, and I have a stable career. Emma, on the other hand, has always been more dramatic and enjoys being the center of attention. She's also very particular about aesthetics and has a clear vision of how things should be done. A few months ago, Emma got engaged to her fiancé, Ryan. She immediately started talking about her wedding plans, and naturally, as her older sister, I was excited to help. I thought we could have fun brainstorming and contributing, as I have some experience with event planning and design. However, the moment I started asking questions or offering ideas, she shut me down. She told me she had already figured everything out and that she didn't need my input. I was a little hurt, but I thought maybe she just wanted to surprise me later. The real issue started when she announced she wanted a small, intimate wedding. She said she wanted to host it in my apartment because she loves the charming, homey vibe of my place and thinks it would be perfect for her aesthetic. At first, I was flattered. I enjoy hosting, and I wanted to support her. But then the details came out. She wanted over 50 people in my 900-square-foot apartment, professional catering, a DJ setup in the living room, and decorations that would require removing most of my furniture. When I hesitated, she got upset. I tried to explain that my apartment is really small and that hosting 50 people in that space would be impossible. I suggested alternative venues, including local event spaces and even small restaurants that could accommodate her vision without destroying someone's home. She dismissed every suggestion, insisting that it would mean so much if the wedding was in my apartment. She also said it would save her a lot of money, which I found manipulative, considering that this was supposed to be her dream day, not my financial burden. Then things escalated. I told her that, given the size and logistics, I could not host the wedding. I explained politely that it wasn't about her vision being unreasonable. It was physically impossible in my apartment and would create unnecessary stress for me. Emma's reaction was extreme. She accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and not caring about her happiness. She went on a rant about how I always try to control everything and how I was ruining what should be a magical experience for her. She even said my apartment was cold and uninviting, and that maybe I should consider redecorating before trying to host people. I was stunned. I had always kept my home clean and welcoming, and I've hosted friends and family multiple times without issue. Her words felt like a personal attack, rather than constructive criticism. I tried to calm her down, suggesting that we focus on solutions instead of insults, but she refused to engage. She said she was done with me and started planning the wedding at another venue, while continuing to criticize my space and my inability to step up for her. Things got worse when our parents got involved. They asked me to reconsider and reminded me that Emma was my sister, that this was a once-in-a-lifetime event, and that I should put my feelings aside. I understand wanting to support family, but the more they pressured me, the more uncomfortable I felt. It felt like I was being coerced into hosting a massive event in a place that literally cannot accommodate it, while also taking the blame for supposedly being unsupportive. Since then, my relationship with Emma has been tense. She occasionally sends passive-aggressive messages about not being excited for her big day in my home, and my parents hint that I'm being unreasonable. Meanwhile, I'm genuinely concerned about the impact hosting such a large event would have had on my mental health, my living space, and my finances. I never wanted to ruin her wedding. I just couldn't host it under the conditions she demanded. Some friends have told me I'm right to set boundaries, while others say I'm being stubborn and should have compromised somehow. I honestly feel like I'm being punished for saying no to something that was clearly unrealistic, and I'm worried that my refusal will permanently damage my relationship with my sister. AITA for refusing to host Emma's wedding after she excluded me from planning and insulted my home? Or should I have just swallowed my objections to make her happy? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister live with me after she got out of rehab. This situation has been building for a while, and I'm honestly torn because part of me feels like I'm doing the right thing, and another part of me feels like a terrible person for possibly turning my sister away when she really needs support. I need an outside perspective because I keep going in circles with my own thoughts. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 26F, who has struggled with substance abuse for most of her adult life. Our parents passed away a few years ago, and since then, Emily has had a hard time maintaining stability in her life. She's gone through a few rehab programs, had periods of sobriety, but she also had multiple relapses. I love her very much, and I want to support her, but my own mental health and life stability have become important priorities for me. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a major city. I work as a software engineer, and my job is demanding. I'm able to support myself comfortably, but I live alone and value my routines, quiet time, and personal space. For years, I've been the responsible sibling, the one who handles finances, bills, and general life logistics, while Emily struggled with basic stability. I've always tried to help her when I could, mostly financially and emotionally. I've driven her to appointments, lent her money for rent or groceries, and tried to be a safe person she could turn to. However, I also noticed that when I tried to help her live with me in the past, things would become chaotic quickly. She would leave doors unlocked, forget to pay bills, and sometimes bring people over who made me uncomfortable. Every time she lived with me, my stress levels skyrocketed, and I ended up resentful, even though I know that wasn't fair to her. Emily recently completed a rehab program after another relapse. She called me last week and asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she looks for a job and an apartment. She said she's been sober for a month now and that she's serious about staying clean. On the one hand, I am happy she's making progress, and I truly want to support her. On the other hand, I immediately felt panic at the thought of her moving in. I'm worried about how it will impact my life, my routines, and my mental health. I tried to explain that I can help her in ways other than letting her live with me, like helping her find an apartment, contributing to a security deposit, or even just being available to talk, but she insisted that living together is necessary for her to maintain sobriety. She said that having a safe, structured environment is critical right now and that she can't trust herself to live alone. I refused. I told her that my apartment isn't equipped for another person, that my life is already stressful, and that I can't risk my mental health by taking on a full-time caretaker role. She cried, screamed, and accused me of being selfish. She said I don't care about her recovery and that I'm letting her fail. She also said I've never really been there for her in the way she needs. I tried to stay calm, but I ended up hanging up because the conversation was spiraling. Since then, our family, friends, and a few relatives have gotten involved. Some are saying I'm right for prioritizing my life and not enabling her, while others are saying I should put her needs before my own for a few months. One friend said that this is the moment that could define her recovery, and turning her away might send her back into relapse. I get it, I really do, but I also feel like I can't take on the responsibility of living with her without it completely destabilizing me. I've thought about temporary measures, like me staying over at her place or arranging day programs, but she's adamant that she needs to live in the same space as me. I also worry that if she moves in and relapses while living with me, I'll feel guilty forever, and our relationship will be damaged. There's also the practical reality. My apartment is small, and my lifestyle is structured around my routines. I've spent years building this stable life, and I'm not willing to sacrifice my mental health and career for the possibility that it might not even help her in the long run. I understand that she's vulnerable right now, and I do want to support her recovery, but I can't shake the feeling that living together is a boundary I cannot cross. I've offered alternatives like helping her find sober living housing, funding therapy, attending support meetings with her, and checking in regularly. She has rejected all of them, saying that nothing will work unless she can live with me. I don't want to be cold or unsupportive, but I also know my limits. My friends tell me that it's okay to have boundaries and that enabling is different from helping, but part of me feels like a failure as a sister. I keep imagining her struggling alone and maybe relapsing, and it tears me apart. I know this is a critical point in her recovery, but I also have to be honest about my limits. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister live with me, even though she just got out of rehab and insists she needs to stay with me to stay sober. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering her plans. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering the plans she made without considering my feelings. I feel like I might be overreacting, but I also feel blindsided and hurt, and I need some outside perspective. A little context. I, 29F, and my sister, Lily, 31F, have had a complicated relationship for years. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but our personalities clash a lot. She's very extroverted, controlling, and likes to orchestrate things in a way that centers her, while I'm more introverted and laid back. We've had our disagreements, but generally, we've managed to maintain a civil relationship. Our parents are supportive, but tend to side with Lily in conflicts, which has always been frustrating for me. Last year, Lily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 32M. At first, I was excited for her and wanted to help with planning, as I've always been the creative one in the family and have helped with a lot of past events. She initially asked me for ideas, and I tried to contribute where I could. I suggested some vendors, a few themes, and even offered to help with DIY decorations, but every suggestion I made was dismissed outright. She insisted she had it all under control. I didn't mind at the time, thinking maybe it was just stress talking, but in retrospect, I should have realized how rigid she was about the plans. About 6 months ago, she told me the venue, date, and general idea for the wedding. The problem started when I saw the guest list and seating arrangements. I noticed that she had not only excluded my closest friends, but had also assigned me to a table with people I barely know, some of whom I actively dislike. While I brought this up gently, suggesting maybe I could sit with a few friends or colleagues, she snapped and said that the wedding was her day, not mine, and that I should just be grateful to be included at all. I tried to let it slide, but it hurt. The tipping point came last week. She sent me the official invitation and itinerary, which included a series of events leading up to the wedding, including a rehearsal dinner, brunch the next day, and a welcome party the night before the ceremony. What made me upset was that the itinerary required me to participate in multiple outfit changes, attend a day-long spa event that I had no interest in, and even join a photo shoot where I was supposed to wear coordinating outfits chosen by Lily. When I asked if I could skip the spa day or opt out of the photo shoot, she got extremely defensive, saying that everyone was expected to follow her plan to the letter. I realized then that attending her wedding meant not just showing up for the ceremony, but essentially surrendering my autonomy for several days. I have social anxiety, and large, highly orchestrated events are incredibly draining for me. I had tried to communicate this before, but she brushed it off, saying that this was her dream wedding and that I needed to support her. I told her that I couldn't commit to attending under these conditions, and that I wanted to celebrate her in a way that worked for me, maybe a private lunch or a gift, but I could not participate in the full itinerary. She reacted very poorly. She accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and jealous of her life. She said I was ruining her wedding, and that if I didn't comply, I was essentially choosing to be left out entirely. Our parents are involved now. They've been pressuring me to just bite the bullet and attend, saying that it's a once-in-a-lifetime event and that I'm overreacting. They insist that it's about family and that Lily will be hurt if I don't follow her plans. I explained that I want to support her, but I can't in the way she's demanding. I offered to help in ways that didn't require me to participate in events that trigger my anxiety, like designing the invitations or helping with favors, but she refused, saying that my help isn't needed if I'm not fully participating. I feel caught between wanting to maintain some relationship with my sister and protecting my own mental health. I don't want to cause a huge rift, but at the same time, I feel like being forced into situations that make me uncomfortable is unreasonable. I reached out to a few close friends for advice. They mostly told me that my boundaries are valid and that it's okay to say no, even at family events. A few suggested that I compromise and attend at least the ceremony, but I feel like any compromise would still require me to participate in the days-long pre-wedding events, which I cannot do. So here I am, telling my family that I will not be attending the wedding as it is currently planned. I will send a gift and a card, but I will not be physically present. My parents are upset. Lily is furious, and even some extended family members are questioning my decision. I feel guilty and sad, but also relieved that I'm finally standing up for my boundaries. I guess my main question is, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I cannot conform to her rigid, all-encompassing plans? I don't want to hurt her, but I also cannot compromise my mental health and personal comfort for the sake of a single event, no matter how important it is to her. I'm struggling to balance family obligations with my own well-being, and I honestly don't know if I'm being reasonable or if I'm overreacting. Has anyone been in a situation like this? And how did you handle it without causing permanent damage to family relationships? I just want to feel like I'm doing the right thing without completely alienating my sister. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a decade of family tension. I, 32F, have had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 36F, for as long as I can remember. Growing up, our family had a pattern of favoritism that always left me feeling like I was on the outside looking in. Our parents, while loving in some ways, were particularly focused on Emily. She excelled in school, sports, and social situations, and my achievements were often downplayed or compared unfavorably to hers. Over the years, I tried to bridge the gap, but the constant comparisons created a lot of resentment. Fast forward to adulthood. Emily got married very young to a man named Derek. Their marriage ended in divorce after a few years, and my parents were extremely vocal about how I should support her no matter what, even though I had witnessed firsthand the ways in which Derek treated her poorly. I offered advice gently, tried to help her emotionally, but was accused of being judgmental or unsupportive because I didn't blindly agree with everything she did. After the divorce, Emily started dating someone named Lucas, and this is where the tension with my parents escalated. Lucas was, in their eyes, a perfect match for Emily, successful, charming, and well-connected. I didn't dislike Lucas, but I had concerns about how quickly Emily moved from one relationship to another, and I expressed those concerns cautiously. Somehow, my concerns were twisted into me being toxic and unsupportive, and my parents backed her completely. I felt cornered, and over time I stopped trying to engage. I visited only when absolutely necessary, and family events became increasingly stressful. A few months ago, Emily got engaged again, this time to a man named Victor. She sent out invitations to a small, intimate wedding in a different state, which I initially thought would be manageable. I explained to my parents that I had some ongoing work obligations that made traveling difficult, and they brushed it off, insisting that family comes first. I tried to compromise, suggesting I could attend virtually for part of the ceremony or at least be present for some celebrations. But Emily responded with a long message saying that if I wasn't there in person, it would break her heart. That message hit me harder than expected. On one hand, I genuinely wanted to support my sister, but on the other hand, I felt like I was being guilt-tripped. I started reflecting on the family dynamics over the last decade, the favoritism, the constant comparisons, and the way my feelings were dismissed or minimized, and I realized that attending might not be healthy for me emotionally. I also thought about how past attempts to support Emily had often ended with me being blamed for her stress or unhappiness. I've been working on setting boundaries, and this seemed like a crucial moment. After a lot of thought, I decided to decline the invitation. I sent Emily a message explaining that I loved her and wished her the best, but that I would not be attending. I offered to celebrate together at a later date, maybe during a weekend when I could visit without the stress of the wedding environment. I also told my parents that I wouldn't be traveling for the wedding. Their reactions were immediate and intense. My mother called me heartless and accused me of letting Emily down at the worst possible moment. My father added that I was being selfish and that family bonds should outweigh my work and personal considerations. Emily herself sent a very long text detailing how hurt she was, emphasizing that she had always tried to be close to me and how my absence would be a huge statement about my relationship with her. She ended the message by saying she felt like I was choosing my own comfort over her happiness, which, to some degree, is true, but I also think it's about self-preservation. After sending the message, she blocked me on social media, and my parents have since refused to discuss the wedding with me. A few of my friends and coworkers have said I was right to set boundaries, especially given the history of emotional manipulation and favoritism. Others have argued that attending the wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event, and that family should come first, no matter the past. I feel torn because while I know my reasons are valid, I also can't shake the fear that this decision will permanently damage my relationship with Emily and maybe even my parents. I'm now reflecting on whether my decision was justified or if I overreacted. Part of me thinks I was protecting my mental health and establishing necessary boundaries after years of neglect and emotional manipulation. Another part worries that I'm being too rigid and letting old resentments dictate my present actions. My friends say I need to think of it as an act of self-care, but my parents and Emily see it as a betrayal. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of family tension. Even though I love her and want her to be happy, I feel like this might be a pivotal moment in our family history, but I don't know if it's the right one. AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices, even though it caused a huge family rift. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 29F. Growing up, she was the quintessential golden child, while I often felt like I was left in the shadows. Our parents were loving, but clearly had favorites, which created a lot of tension between us over the years. That said, I've always tried to maintain a cordial relationship with her. Recently, things escalated in a way I didn't anticipate, and now the whole family is involved. Emily has a 6-year-old son, Liam, who is incredibly bright and inquisitive. From the start, she's always been extremely protective, almost to the point of being controlling. She homeschooled him for the first couple of years and then switched to a very exclusive private school, despite Liam struggling socially and emotionally in group settings. She insists that her approach is what's best for him, and anyone who questions it is just being judgmental. I've voiced concern in small ways before, like suggesting he might benefit from more group activities or friendships outside of school, but Emily always brushes it off. Things came to a head last month when I visited her house with my partner, Jason, 34M, and our 2 kids, Ava, 7F, and Theo, 5M. We were planning a weekend visit, and Emily had insisted on hosting everyone at her place, which is quite small and not ideal for a lot of kids running around. When we arrived, it was obvious that Liam was extremely stressed. He was pacing, clinging to Emily, and refused to interact with Ava and Theo. Emily laughed it off, saying, "He just needs a little time to warm up. Don't push him." But over the course of a few hours, it became increasingly clear that he was miserable and anxious. At one point, I asked if he wanted to play with Theo in the backyard. He immediately shook his head and ran to his room. That's when I gently suggested maybe letting the kids engage at their own pace, perhaps starting with a shared activity like coloring or a simple game. Emily's response was immediate and defensive. She said, "I appreciate your concern, but I know my child better than anyone. You're not his parent. You don't get to tell me how to raise him." I try to stay calm, but the more she dismissed my observations, the more frustrated I became. I told her that I wasn't criticizing her as a mother, but that Liam's behavior seemed anxious and that there were ways to help him adapt socially without compromising his needs. I brought up examples from parenting resources I had read, emphasizing small social exposure, empathy, and structured group play. I try to frame it as concern for Liam, not a critique of Emily. Emily's reaction was explosive. She accused me of undermining her parenting, of trying to make her look incompetent in front of our family, and even of being jealous because I had a normal approach with my kids. She stormed out of the room, and Liam followed her, visibly upset. For the rest of the visit, she was cold and distant, barely speaking to me or Jason. She also refused to let Liam interact with my kids again, even in structured activities, saying this isn't healthy for him. After we left, Emily texted me a long message accusing me of overstepping boundaries, interfering in her family, and creating a hostile environment. She said our visit traumatized Liam and demanded that we not bring our kids over again. I responded, calmly reiterating that I only brought up my concerns out of love for Liam and that I wasn't trying to criticize her. I also apologized if my tone had come across as confrontational. Since then, the rift has grown. My parents have sided somewhat with Emily, saying that I should respect her choices as Liam's mother and not impose my opinions. Some extended family members have reached out to me privately, saying they understand my perspective but are afraid to speak up. Emily has refused to communicate, and Liam's father, who is divorced from Emily and somewhat distant, has said he doesn't want to get involved, leaving me feeling completely isolated. Jason thinks I did the right thing by advocating for Liam in a compassionate way, but he also admits that my approach may have been a bit blunt and could have been softened. I feel torn because I genuinely wanted to help Liam, but now my relationship with Emily and possibly my entire family is strained. I keep questioning whether it was my place to say anything at all. On one hand, I see a child clearly stressed and struggling, and I feel I can't just stand by silently. On the other hand, I recognize that Emily is his mother, and I may have inadvertently hurt our family dynamic. The argument has also sparked other family members to share their private grievances about Emily's parenting, which has made me feel like I unintentionally opened a can of worms. Every family gathering has become tense, with subtle jabs and passive-aggressive comments, and Emily continues to refuse direct communication with me. My parents suggest giving it time and space, but I'm worried that this will permanently damage my relationship with my sister and my niece or nephew. So here's my question. AITA for confronting my sister about how she handles Liam's social interactions, even though it led to a huge family conflict? Was I overstepping, or was it necessary to speak up for a child I care about, even if it meant risking my relationship with my sister? AITA for refusing to give my stepdaughter a large sum of money for her wedding because I don't trust her judgment? I, 45M, have been married to my wife, Karen, 42F, for 8 years. She has a daughter from a previous marriage, Sophie, 23F, who is very sweet but also extremely impulsive. Sophie has always been the kind of person who makes big decisions without thinking them through. And while I love her, I have serious concerns about her financial responsibility. My wife and I are financially comfortable. We own a house, have decent savings, and live within our means, but we are careful with money and have always taught Sophie the importance of budgeting and planning. Sophie recently got engaged to her boyfriend, Liam, 25M. I met him a few times, and while he seems nice, I don't know him well enough to fully trust his intentions. Sophie told us she wants an elaborate wedding that could easily cost upwards of $40,000. She said she wanted a destination wedding, a big dress, expensive catering, and all the trimmings. When she told my wife and me about her plan, I told her honestly that such a wedding is not financially realistic for us to fund. I offered to contribute a reasonable amount, enough to cover part of the ceremony and a modest reception. But she insisted that anything less is unacceptable and claimed she would be devastated if she didn't get the wedding she envisioned. I tried to explain that my issue is not about being cheap or not wanting to support her. I explained that I have no doubt she loves Liam and wants a special day, but spending $40,000 or even a large chunk of our savings on a single event feels reckless to me. I suggested alternative ways to make the wedding memorable without taking on massive financial risk, such as hosting it locally, reducing the guest list, or having a smaller, more intimate celebration. Sophie and, to my shock, Karen became very upset with me. Karen told me that I'm being controlling and unsupportive. Sophie said that I don't care about her happiness and that I'm ruining her dream wedding. I tried to stay calm, but the situation escalated quickly. Sophie said she might just pay for the wedding herself using her savings and credit cards. I asked her if she had thought about the debt she could accumulate, the financial strain it would cause, and the possibility of starting her marriage already in financial trouble. She brushed it off, saying that it's her money and her life, and that I have no right to interfere. I reminded her that I was offering support, not trying to take control, and that my refusal to give her a huge sum isn't the same as preventing her from having a wedding. My concern is mostly that if we co-sign a loan or I give her money outright, I could be on the hook for thousands of dollars if things go wrong. Karen got angry with me, saying I am being selfish and ruining the family dynamic. She said I should do whatever it takes to make Sophie happy and that I'm failing as a stepfather if I don't provide the money she's asking for. She also accused me of not trusting her judgment, which felt unfair because it's not about trust in her as a person, but trust in her ability to handle finances responsibly. The problem is that every time Sophie has made a big financial decision in the past, it hasn't ended well. She once bought a car without researching insurance costs, registration, or maintenance, which ended up costing thousands more than she anticipated. Another time, she impulsively booked a vacation using a credit card, then struggled to pay it off and asked me for help. These patterns make me genuinely concerned about giving her a large sum for a wedding that could easily balloon into something we cannot afford or that puts her in significant debt. I also worry that by giving her the full amount, I'm sending the wrong message about money and responsibility. I want her to enjoy her wedding and start her marriage on a positive note, but I can't ignore the fact that such a huge expenditure could have long-term consequences. I offer to help plan the wedding on a budget, to help negotiate with vendors, and to provide support in any way that doesn't involve handing over tens of thousands of dollars. But she refused all alternatives. The situation has now created a rift in the family. Karen is upset with me. Sophie is hurt and angry. And I feel like I'm being painted as the villain for simply refusing to give someone a large sum of money for an event that could seriously impact all of our finances. My siblings and friends are divided. Some say I am wise to set boundaries and teach responsibility, while others say I should do anything to make the girl happy, and that weddings are once-in-a-lifetime events. I've tried to explain that I am not against her happiness or the wedding itself. I just can't ethically or responsibly give her money that could lead to serious financial consequences for her or me. I've suggested crowdfunding, a smaller wedding, and helping her budget, but she insists nothing else will suffice. Karen keeps pressuring me, saying I'm ruining the relationship with my stepdaughter and that I'll regret this decision later. I feel trapped because I want to support Sophie and maintain family harmony, but I also feel strongly about the importance of financial responsibility. So, AITA for refusing to give my stepdaughter a large sum of money for her wedding because I don't trust her judgment, even though my wife and she are upset with me. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she demanded I give up my career for a big day. This is going to be a long one, so I'll try to lay it out clearly. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, and growing up we were close, but as adults, our lives have gone in very different directions. I work in environmental consulting, which I absolutely love. It's demanding, but it's the career I've built over the last 10 years, and I've invested a lot of time and energy into it. Emily is a wedding planner, and while I respect her profession, she's extremely meticulous and tends to be controlling when it comes to how events are run. Emily recently got engaged to her fiancé, Dan. Their wedding is in about 6 months, and she's been obsessed with making it perfect. I was invited to be one of her bridesmaids, which I was happy about at first. I love Emily, and I wanted to support her, but that's where the tension began. A few weeks ago, she pulled me aside and said something that completely shocked me. She told me that she had decided the wedding date around a major industry conference that I attend every year for my job, which is critical for my career. I was supposed to attend the conference and would normally be traveling for it around the same time as the wedding. She said that this was unacceptable and that as her sister, it was my duty to rearrange my professional life to be there. She even suggested that I skip the conference entirely. I explained to her that attending the conference was non-negotiable. Not only was it important for my work, but I had already committed to leading a session there and had presentations scheduled months in advance. I told her that I could be present for wedding-related events before or after, but the actual wedding day would be impossible for me to attend. Emily didn't take this well. She said that if I wasn't there for the wedding, I wasn't really supporting her and that it would break her heart. We tried to compromise. I offered to help extensively with pre-wedding planning, travel to the venue a few days early, and participate in all events that didn't conflict with my conference. I even offered to contribute more financially to cover extra costs she might have, because I couldn't be there on the exact day. Emily said none of that mattered. She insisted that if I couldn't be physically present at the ceremony, my support was meaningless. Things escalated quickly. Emily started sending me long, guilt-laden texts almost daily, outlining all the ways my absence would ruin her wedding and claiming that I was being selfish. She said that Dan's family would judge her if her sister wasn't there and that it would look bad in photos. I tried to explain again that my absence was unavoidable and that my career obligations were just as important as her wedding, but she became more insistent to the point of saying I was choosing my job over my family. 2 weeks ago, she sent me an ultimatum. Either I skip the conference and attend the wedding, or she would remove me from the bridesmaid role entirely. I was stunned. This wasn't just about missing the wedding. It was about her demanding that I sacrifice years of work for a single day. I told her I couldn't do that, and that while I loved her, I couldn't jeopardize my career. I also reminded her that she had chosen the wedding date, knowing my schedule months in advance. She went nuclear after that. Emily started posting passive-aggressive things on social media about family who can't show up when it matters, and made several public comments about how some people prioritize work over love. Family members began messaging me privately, asking why I wasn't bending over backward for Emily, and some implied that I was being selfish. I tried to explain my side, but it seems like everyone has sided with her because, apparently, weddings are sacred and should come above all else. To make matters worse, Emily's fiancé Dan reached out to me as well, asking me to consider the bigger picture and suggesting that attending the wedding is a moral obligation to my sister. I told him politely but firmly that I couldn't compromise my professional responsibilities, and I think he now views me as difficult or unsupportive. At this point, I've decided that I will not attend the wedding. I've explained that I will participate in pre-wedding events, send a heartfelt video message, and contribute financially to make things easier, but I cannot be there on the day itself. Emily has stopped talking to me entirely and is posting things online implying that I am deliberately trying to hurt her. My parents are upset with me as well, though they also recognize that it's not reasonable to expect someone to give up years of work for a single event. I feel like I've tried everything I can to compromise, but I'm now being painted as the villain simply for valuing my career and honoring prior commitments. I love my sister, but I also feel like I have a life that can't just pause for someone else's perfect day. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she demanded I skip an important professional commitment? I've thought a lot about this, and I honestly don't see what else I could do, but now I'm questioning if I'm wrong for putting my career first. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she asked me to cover half of it? I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 28F, but our relationship has gotten complicated over the past few years. Growing up, Emily was always the more outgoing, charming sibling, and I tended to be the quieter, more responsible one. Our parents have always been very supportive of both of us, but I always felt that I had to be the one who handled things like finances and planning when life got chaotic. I'm detail-oriented and frugal, whereas Emily is spontaneous and has a much looser approach to money. Fast forward to last year, Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark. They've been together for about 5 years, and while I like Mark, I've always noticed that Emily tends to lean on him financially for anything big without really considering if it's fair to him. When she called me to talk about the wedding, she was thrilled and immediately started throwing out ideas. She had her heart set on a destination wedding in a fancy resort about 3 states away. I was a little taken aback because I had assumed she would want something local and small, but I didn't say anything. She was so excited, and I didn't want to burst her bubble. Then came the part that made me uncomfortable. She told me that the total cost of the wedding was going to be around $60,000. She said she and Mark had saved some, but that they were planning to ask me and my parents to cover most of it. My parents were willing to help, but what shocked me was when she said she expected me to pay half, so roughly $30,000. I couldn't believe it. I live in a city where rent is high, I have student loans, and my husband and I are trying to buy a house. $30,000 would wipe out our savings and put us in a serious debt. I told her I couldn't do that. She got very upset and accused me of not supporting her big day. She said that I was being selfish and that family should step up in times like this. I tried to explain that I wanted to be involved and celebrate with her, but that I simply could not afford to pay for half of such an extravagant wedding. I even suggested alternative ways to help, like helping with planning, making some DIY decorations, organizing the guest list, or even contributing a smaller, meaningful amount. But she kept saying it wasn't enough. After that conversation, she stopped talking to me for a few weeks. I tried to reach out multiple times, sending texts and emails to check in, but she only responded with curt messages that made it clear she was upset. When I finally saw her in person at a family event, she brought it up in front of everyone, saying that I refused to support her marriage and put money over family. My parents tried to mediate, reminding her that they were covering some of the costs, and that expecting me to pay half was unrealistic. Emily just said they had been lucky to have been able to help, and that I should have been able to do the same. Things escalated after that. Emily started posting subtle messages on social media that seemed aimed at me, quotes about selfish siblings, family betrayal, and the importance of financial support in relationships. A few of my friends even reached out to ask if I had done something wrong because they saw these posts and were confused. I didn't post anything back. I just stayed out of it. I did try to compromise once more. I told her I could contribute $2,000 to help cover one or two specific expenses, like the flowers or the cake, but she rejected that outright. She said it wouldn't even make a dent and that it wasn't what she was asking for. I felt hurt because I was trying to show goodwill and support in a way that I could afford without jeopardizing my own financial stability. As the wedding got closer, I told her that I would attend and help in any way I could without contributing beyond what I could reasonably afford. She accused me of being cold and distant. My parents tried to step in again, saying that they understood my position and that I had been reasonable, but Emily didn't want to hear it. She went ahead and booked the venue, the resort, and all the expensive extras. She didn't even ask if I could contribute to any part of it beyond what I'd already offered. The night before the wedding, my mother gently suggested that I write a heartfelt note to Emily explaining my feelings and why I couldn't contribute more. I did, pouring my heart into it and emphasizing how proud I was of her and how happy I was for her future with Mark. She read it, but later told me she felt disappointed that I hadn't made sacrifices like she expected. I felt like no matter what I did, it wouldn't be enough. The wedding itself was beautiful, and I tried to enjoy it, but Emily was clearly cold toward me throughout the day. She barely spoke to me, only acknowledging me when absolutely necessary. I tried to participate in dances and conversations, but it felt awkward. Even after the wedding, she hasn't fully reconciled with me. She's posted more messages online, this time about siblings who don't have each other's backs when it matters most. I honestly feel torn. I want to support my sister, and I do love her deeply. But I also know that $30,000 is not something I can give without seriously harming my financial future. I try to compromise in other ways, but she seems unwilling to accept anything less than half the total cost. I also feel that her expectation was unreasonable and not fair, especially given her previous financial independence and the fact that our parents were already contributing significantly. So, AITA for refusing to pay half of my sister's wedding even though it has caused a rift between us? I'm hoping for honest perspectives, because while I don't want to damage our relationship permanently, I also feel that I shouldn't be forced into a financial burden that could jeopardize my life. AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's children even though she needs me. I, 32 am, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Claire, 28F. Growing up, we were pretty close, but once she became an adult, our lives diverged in ways I never anticipated. I have a demanding job in software development, and I moved across the country 5 years ago. Claire stayed in her hometown and started a family early. She has 3 kids, aged 7, 5, and 2, and has been married to her husband, Ryan, 30M, for 8 years. Their marriage has always been a little volatile, which I know from family gatherings and occasional long phone calls. Claire has always relied heavily on family for help with her children. Before I moved, I used to babysit occasionally, but since relocating, it's been less practical. I still visit a couple of times a year, and during those visits, I help where I can. However, she frequently texts me asking me to watch the kids for a few days whenever something comes up. These requests usually come without much notice. For example, she'll text something like, "Ryan has a work trip next week. Can you watch the kids from Tuesday to Friday?" And when I politely say that I can't commit to that, she pressures me, claiming I should make time for family. Last month, I received a message that really triggered the situation. Claire said that Ryan had to travel for 3 weeks for work and that she couldn't handle everything alone. She asked if I could come stay at her house and manage the kids for that entire period. I was honest and told her that I couldn't. I have a demanding job, my own life, and responsibilities here. I suggested other options like hiring a babysitter or asking our parents for help. She immediately got defensive and started sending long messages about how I owe her because I was her older brother and family should stick together. I didn't respond immediately, hoping she would calm down, but she escalated things. She sent texts every day, some quite passive-aggressive, like, "I guess you have better things to do than help your own sister," or, "I would never abandon my family like this." After about a week of this, I finally responded. I wrote that I understood she was in a tough spot, but I could not commit to staying at her house for 3 weeks. I reminded her that I am willing to help when I can, but that I also have limits. Her reaction was explosive. She called me multiple times, yelling, accusing me of being selfish, and saying that I was choosing my career over family. I explained calmly that I can't pause my entire life and move across the country to babysit her children for an extended period. She told me that if I loved her and the kids, I would make sacrifices and that I was disappointing everyone. She also started messaging our parents, trying to get them to convince me to go. Our parents were sympathetic, but ultimately told her I had every right to decline. The tension didn't end there. A mutual friend of ours saw part of the argument online and texted me, asking if I was going to do the right thing and help her out. I tried explaining my side, but the friend seemed shocked that I wouldn't drop everything. When I visited my hometown for a short weekend, the atmosphere with Claire was icy. She barely spoke to me unless she was indirectly criticizing me or pointing out that Ryan would be away again soon and how unhelpful I was being. What bothers me most is the ongoing guilt trip. Every day, she sends messages about how stressful her life is, how tired she is, and how she really needs family. I understand parenting is tough, especially with 3 kids, but I feel like she's weaponizing that stress to pressure me. I've offered smaller, manageable ways to help, like arranging online tutoring for her kids, sending grocery delivery, or even paying for occasional babysitting. But she says it's not the same as me being physically there for weeks. I'm also starting to notice that her expectations are affecting my social and professional life. I've considered spending holidays with her and the kids, but I dread the feeling of being guilt or cornered into longer commitments. I value my relationship with my nieces and nephew, but I feel like Claire has turned my family bond into an obligation that I'm being criticized for not fulfilling perfectly. Some extended family members have weighed in, some agreeing with her that families should help each other, while others side with me, saying that my life isn't on hold and that it's unreasonable to expect me to uproot for weeks. I haven't blocked her or cut contact because I don't want to escalate things further, but our conversations are tense and often end with her saying things like, "You'll regret this when the kids grow up and see what you did." I'm honestly torn because I want to support my sister and her children, but I also feel that my limits and responsibilities should be respected. I'm wondering if I'm being selfish for refusing to babysit for 3 weeks. I don't want to harm my relationship with my nieces and nephew, but I also can't compromise my life and career to satisfy her expectations. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids for an extended period, even though she says she needs me. Here's a summary of what I've done so far. Politely declined her request multiple times. Offered alternative ways to support her without being physically present for weeks. Maintained contact and visited occasionally but set boundaries. Refused to give in to guilt-tripping and unreasonable demands. The fallout: sister is angry, defensive, and continues guilt-tripping. Some family and friends side with her. My relationship with her is tense and emotionally strained. I'm trying to find a balance between being a supportive brother and maintaining my own life, but I'm questioning if I'm wrong here. Have I crossed a line, or is her expectation truly unreasonable? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.